Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, KBOI listeners. This is Dylan Stalker. This is your 3.5 generation Idahoan. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm paying to be on the radio because I care about Idaho. I care about what's happening in Idaho. Before we get started today on this beautiful Sunday morning, we're going to talk about our sponsors. And our sponsors are definitely all Idaho, and it is about history. And we're talking about historical firearms. We're talking about collectible firearms. It is Old Arms of Idaho. They are your experts in things that are historically related to firearms, Western, and military. You can go and check them out at oldarmsofidaho.com. Again, this is about our connection in Idaho to history. Let's go right to it today. Today, as you have all heard if you've been following us, we're going to be speaking to Diane Bevan of the Idaho Technology Council. This is Idaho. Idaho is growing. Idaho is growing in technology. And Diane, you have had your hand in this for quite some time now. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Dylan. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Yeah, absolutely. So generally, I have failed to ask this question every time up to this point, and I've wanted to. And this is about Idaho. What do you love about Idaho?
It's just a beautiful state. But what I really love is that, and of course, I've traveled from one corner to the other, is the people, really. I think it's the people that make Idaho so special. And it doesn't matter whether I'm in a community of 500 or what we now call urban, right? We have now some urban areas.
Yeah, right.
But I think it's really, it's truly the people for me is what I love.
Yes, I think of words like courteous and genuine. And just authentic, there's a different sense. Authentic is a good word. I love that. So I've been wanting to ask that for the past 9, 10, 15 shows, and I've failed at it. And you're the first one, and I love Idaho too. So thank you for sharing that. With the Idaho Technology Council, I participated in an event yesterday, which this is a recorded show. So yesterday would be the 6th. This will be on a different day that you all hear it. I have to say that was a very powerful event that you, Diane, managed yesterday. And I want to talk about it a little bit more and get a little bit deeper in the details. But would you share a little bit of your history, please, to give us all a sense of where you come from and how you became the CEO of the Idaho Technology Council?
That's such a great question. You know, I've been a nonprofit CEO for a while, had many different opportunities in running the Hispanic Chamber and then created the Hispanic Foundation. More recently, running the Idaho Women's Business Center for our state, funded through the SBA. And I've done a lot of study of nonprofit leadership. Okay. So recently completed an executive program at Penn in social impact strategies, and I'm working on my master's now in nonprofit leadership. So I like to tell people that I truly believe in nonprofit governance. Today, it's technology. So I'm super excited. I've been in this role now a little bit over a year, and it's been really, really great.
There's a lot going on in Idaho for technology.
Wow. There's a lot going on everywhere for technology.
I mean, it's the age of, and I hate to say it, it's like buzzwords. This is like AI, but there's so much more than just the buzzword of AI happening, We'll go into yesterday because there's so much wonderful content. I think yesterday is a good example. What I'm referring to, ladies and gentlemen, yesterday was an event called the State of Technology by the Idaho Technology Council. It was at the Jump Building, downtown Boise. It filled the conference room. Governor Brad Little was there. Representatives from Meta was there. Representatives from some of Idaho's greatest technology businesses were there. They were all speaking. We had representatives from the now Trump administration. It was a very important event. And for the people that are on the inside, we can see how important what's happening and lucky enough to participate. I was one of those lucky participants, thanks to you. You were right at the head of that. Tell me about what it took to put that together, or maybe feel free to, at liberty, describe what's transpiring here.
I appreciate that, Dylan. As a former entrepreneur myself, I owned a wedding event center and an event venue for 10 years. So I know the work that goes into these really, really big events. Yeah. And, for organizations, you have, networking and you have other types of events. But when you host a state of the state, which means the condition of,
Sure.
it is important to not just give that Idaho report, but it's also to have the right audience. So you want to have that diversified audience of everyone from a solo entrepreneur to a community advocate to a large tech company, but you also want your resource partners like the Small Business Administration. Yeah. And it just so happened that, it was the kickoff of celebrating National Small Business Week, which really did add to that energy in the room yesterday. But it is one of those events per year where you can really have that gathering of the ecosystem.
It came together so well.
Thank
you know when an event comes together very well when the post-event snapshots of what's transpiring, I personally saw getting published all over national levels of communication through all platforms, X, Facebook, even Instagram. It's such an impact. One of the things that I really appreciated coming from my background is I looked really hard and I took bad notes. There was a wonderful lady that was the MC of your event, and she has a recruiting background. I'm a recruiter. I was a technical recruiter. Who is that? Share that with me again so we can celebrate what she was doing. That's a big event.
It is. And she is the incoming chairwoman of the Board of Trustees for next year for the Idaho Tech Council. Jessica Cafferty was identified to be the vice chair earlier this year. And I think her telling her story, she's the daughter of a cowboy. She has a deep, roots here. And now she owns a recruiting company and has really embraced technology that way. And I think what was so special about having her MC, which was, our decision to give her that stage, is because it really told that story that the Idaho Tech Council is for everybody. It's not just for the computer science engineer, data analyst. Like it truly is, because now technology it's kind of no longer its own industry because it really does touch everything.
Yeah, it touches human resources. From a recruiter's perspective, AI touches ZipRecruiter, it touches all these Indeeds, all these basic job applications. We have some much more focused job application or recruiter databases. Red Balloon was there yesterday in communication. That was interesting to see that. Am I off base on that? They do a recruiting platform for technology. Am I correct there?
They do. We chose Red Balloon and Ovum Health because they were North Idaho entrepreneurs. And that's really set on our sites. And they were recently a finalist in our Idovation Awards in last year's Hall of Fame. So
cool.
Yeah, so we identified them as someone that could come and maybe tell that rural Idaho story.
It's a fun story. So this is about the Idaho Technology Council. We're speaking to Diane Bevan. She's the CEO of the Idaho Technology Council. The Idaho Technology Council is a nonprofit organization, as you describe.
It is.
Man, how does that come together? Because there's certainly a lot of profit in technology, and to be a nonprofit existing within it all is just interesting to me.
Well, and we are what I would consider a tech affiliate. So we don't produce, and we're not ourselves a technology, right? We're a nonprofit that supports the ecosystem. And they are a hybrid model. So they have a 501c6 and a 501c3. Okay. Yeah, so we're kind of a hybrid model that allows us to get a little bit more involved in policy on the SIC side and run, some federal grants through the other side.
Yeah, that's so neat. Me, I'm just a young individual, just get out of the military, and I find this company that is recruiting high caliber software engineers, and VP is in the Bay Areas back in 1999. And just, it's an industry, like you said, you don't have to be a coder. We have opportunities in HR and opportunities in recruiting and opportunities in media, and across the board, you can join technology. Me, the next thing you know, I worked for Google when they had 24 employees.
Incredible.
Right? I'm lucky to have participated in this, and which leads to why I just love this conversation with you, because I'm lucky enough to have a light understanding of what you're doing, which is so powerful for the Idaho technology industry. We're about to come into another a segment here, but you have some thoughts about what we're doing. What's your overall goal this year?
Well, I think, and I do want to circle back around when we come back to talk about the difference in like your experience growing up in technology, the early adopters, right, versus those that are kind of watching the technology unfold. So we can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, okay. Again, ladies and gentlemen, our KBOI 670 AM 93.1 FM listeners, this is Dylan Stalker, your 3.5 generation Idahoan, just simply trying to share you the positive and good things happening with Idaho. We're speaking to Diane Bevan, the CEO of the Idaho Technology Council today, and you can listen to this interview anytime after it airs at thegreatidahoshow.com. It'll be minus ads, and it'll be there for you all to hear, because this is an important moment in Idaho's life. This is technology. This is how we're going to get ahead, and Diane's going to lead us through that here in this next segment. Thank you very much for listening today. Okay, welcome back, KBOI listeners. This is Dylan Stalker again. Always your 3.5 generation Idahoan, sharing with you the wonderful things that are happening in Idaho. What is wonderful today? The Idaho Technology Council. This is the future, ladies and gentlemen. Idaho can be stodgy and hold on to our old deep roots in anti-technology, but technology's here. It's coming. Diane Bevan is here with me today of the Idaho Technology Council. And in this last segment, I asked her, what's the goal of the Idaho Technology Council? Diane, what is it?
Well, we have three main strategic pillars. There's also a lot of other areas that we still do touch, but one of those is truly to be statewide and to really engage in the agricultural side of Idaho. Agritech is a thing. Health tech is a thing. They're using AI to cut weeds in fields.
Sure.
You know, they've been using technology for a while in a lot of the watering systems in Idaho farms. But one thing that we are seeing is as technology is, as we talked about in the last slide, is advancing at a rapid rate.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we have a goal to is to remove some of the barriers and make sure that the digital divide will only get greater. So if you take, for instance, you have two different farmers or two different ranchers, one's using technology and automation, one is still doing it the same way they've done it for 100 years. There is going to be a natural component to the growth of the one that is embracing technology. And so, you know, we have seen a lot of our entrepreneurs incorporate technology. And of course, we were talking a little bit about AI, but the nice thing about using those automations, and in some ways, it is leveling the playing field and it's opening opportunities for entrepreneurs that maybe don't have the degrees or the experience behind them, like we talked about as a coder, but they know how to use these automations through AI, and it's helping solopreneurs that maybe they're not quite ready to hire their next employee, but quite a bit of their HR and some can be done in an automation through a software system using artificial intelligence. And, you know, right now it is definitely the sparky, shiny thing.
It is a shiny thing,
but
isn't it?
quantum is right behind it. Quantum is right on its heels. And we're going to hear a lot more about that in the next year or so, too. And Idaho's going to play a big part in that as well. And so it is, to your point, it's an exciting time to be in technology. And Idaho is on the cusp of really being that hub in the Pacific Northwest. And that is one of the goals of the ITC, is to attract tech companies to put a stake in the ground. We have over 10,000 technologists working in this Treasure Valley for companies outside of Idaho. And so they're adding to the economy, but we would really love to add to growing and building our technology like data and ecosystem.
Yeah, and data is a wonderful thing. Mm-hmm. We can store this data and we can extrapolate this data at any time. And in 10 years from now, that data may look different to us, right? Data is a fluid thing. There is no fact of data. It changes with the needs of the business and the times. It was interesting to me yesterday. You had Governor Brad Little yesterday talking specifically about agritech. And, you know, when I'm going through these interviews with somebody who's immersed in these things every single day, and I have a slight little bit of insight, but I'm from the outside. I'm a layman here in Idaho. It made me feel like you could actually get involved in agribusiness as a smaller person using these tools. You don't have to come to the table with, you know, $10 million just to get started. You can actually get started at a much smaller level, thankful to these tools.
100%. You're super correct on that. And, you know, we did talk a lot about data yesterday. And no, we're meeting with tech companies that are looking at vertical farming and some pilots, and they are looking at Idaho as a potential western location. They already have a pretty strong one on the eastern side where they can grow produce that you would normally only be able to get from outside of the U.S.
Okay.
And there's some amazing things happening right now.
And in vertical farming, is that in the essence of taking 1 acre of land and leveling it up vertically? Is that the sense that you're talking
almost
about?
like if you can think of what you would envision the inside of, say, a warehouse, like a shipping warehouse that just has like robotic-led forklifters, and it has the right control temperature, and it literally goes, it looks like just shelves, and they are potted and they grow like lettuce as a where it's being tested the most right now.
Yeah, you can hydroponically do lettuce fairly easily.
You can go very vertical with it.
Yeah. I have an interview coming up. This would be interesting, by the way. I have an interview coming up with Purple Sage Farms and Mike Sommer, which is in Middleton, an organic farming family that has a lot to do with the Boise Farmers Market. And I can sense some conflicting opinions about how all this works. But at the end of the day, if we're delivering a relative product that is not what a lot of people's concerns is chemically changed versus just output, it's like, yeah, I mean, the technology is here. We can accentuate it and appreciate it and empower people that maybe would not have been able to get involved because it makes things easier. It's making what I do with you today here easier. I use AI to support me being prepared for this conversation with you at a pretty basic level, but
absolutely. And we'll talk about that in a second. But for your Idaho listeners, if they're curious about the vertical farming and they've kind of heard our conversation, and one of the companies that we have met with in Idaho that are out of the East Coast is called Ag-I. Okay. So if they want to kind of dig in a little deeper to see what's being piloted in vertical farming, Ag-I would be a great resource for your listeners.
That's amazing. Yeah. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I come from a Silicon Valley type industry where in 1998, if it wasn't happening in the Silicon Valley, there's a few other places across the country at that time that had some light blips of growth. But, if you're a growing state and you are going to be representative of all industries, just for what my ears hear, it feels like we have a lot of great opportunities happening here in that technology sector, if you will. What thoughts do you have about that?
Well, and I love that you brought up Silicon Valley, because then we watched the Utah Technology Council. They transitioned into, now they're called Silicon Slopes. Okay. And that is their organization for their technology companies. And so as I just recently had a signature event in Eastern Idaho, we did a tech expo, a stakeholder meeting, and we're really the first phases for me is to really recognize who all the tech companies are. So we're working on building that list. And, there's some clusters that have really started and we're going to start studying some of the clusters in North Idaho. But what we've discovered in Eastern Idaho, when you think about Eastern Idaho, you think about Idaho National Lab. You think about Melaleuca. You think about our universities, some of the bigger employers. Sure. But if you just Google tech companies in Eastern Idaho, there's like 20 or more software companies in Blackfoot. People wouldn't even think that. And so to your point, there's such a great opportunity for people to start these companies no matter where they choose to live. They can live on a beautiful farm in a very rural area in Idaho. Yeah. And as long as they, have the broadband that they need, then they can launch companies and use those automation and tools. What we see happening, at least my prediction in the next, 3 to 5 years with the Idaho Tech Council, is that we will be that catalyst to really connect the clusters. And we really want to encourage Idaho to do business with Idaho. So if you have a company that has an automation need, we want them to know who all the AI companies are that are here that they can support. And I think that that's already happening. We're seeing that. But it's really for us, we are the one that brings people and puts them in a room and then make those super connections, like the young lady you mentioned from Sagal, Idaho.
Yeah.
Do your listeners know where Sagal, Idaho is?
I know. And honestly, I'm an Idaho kid through and through. My goodness. I've been just about everywhere, but where is it?
It's really, really far north.
Yeah.
Far, far, far north.
Like Canadian border north.
Yeah, Canadian border north.
Yeah.
And it's where she chose to live. And, she's been recognized by Forbes. She's got a growing software company that does amazing things. And I met her here in Boise. She had a booth at Hackfort.
Okay.
We were at Hackfort, and for what she was looking for in connections, it wasn't necessarily the best audience for that type of an event for what she was looking for. But after I met her, I thought, what would it be like to invite an entrepreneur from tiny, tiny North Idaho and put her on a big stage here like we did yesterday? Life-changing.
Isn't big stage just big idea? What you're describing to me is so amazing. I drove from Boise to Moscow within the last week. And I swear it's like Lord of the Rings scenery. You can work in technology. Again, I've recruited in the Bay Area, trying to convince people from San Jose or Sunnyvale to drive up to Mountain View and all of this. And the Bay Area is beautiful for the people that like the cityscape. But man, you can work right here in Idaho with a telephone, a broadband connection, or even a satellite connection, and you can create very, very powerful tools to support vendors or people in need right here in your state boundaries. All you have to do is jump in your car, drive down the most beautiful drive you've ever had in your whole life, and go see those people that you're doing business with. It sounds like that's exactly what she's identified.
And it's not, yes, she's a software company, but it's not just the technology companies. We're seeing entrepreneurs use technology. So that would be considered tech adjacent, right?
Okay, yes.
So you were up in Moscow. Yeah. When you were there, you were about 15, 20 minutes away from an entrepreneur, former engineer, retired, bought some rolling hills, put in a floral farm, used her engineering background, not only just in how she plants those flowers, but now she runs a subscription service online. She is always sold out. She has used technology because she's in a very remote area. She uses, And so it's just been like fantastic to see how entrepreneurs are using technology to bolster their businesses.
We are talking about the motorized horse cart here, and people were just like, that's never going to be it, right? This is the car, ladies and gentlemen. We're all driving them. Diane is leading this for Idaho right now, and from what it sounds like to me, connecting it to from a good Idaho sense, trying to capitalize on all of it for Idaho. This is Dylan Stalker. This is the Great Idaho Show. Diane has thankfully joined us here today to share what's happening in technology. And honestly, it might be hard for some to hear. So was that for the horseless carriage back in the day. But we are doing it here today in Idaho. Thank you for joining us, Diane. We're going to step into another segment here and we'll be right back. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back this beautiful Sunday morning right here in Idaho. I mean, this is the greatest state in the West. You know why? Because I'm biased. I was born and raised here. I've lived here forever. I love it. And, in order to be a great state, you got to grow. And some people are opposed to that, but it's going to happen. We can do it in good ways or bad ways. And I, from what I know of the technology industry, like what I'm hearing from Diane today. We're speaking to Diane Bevan, the CEO of the Idaho Technology Council. This is a lot to do with growth in technology in Idaho, about what we're successful with. Agribusiness, that's a big deal. You either get on the bus or the bus drives right by you. We're going to hopefully lead this bus. Diane's helping with that, the best I can tell. And it is about acceptance and adoption and doing it responsibly and hopefully keeping the business as much as we can within the economy of Idaho, because our economy is so important that way. So welcome back to this segment, Diane. This last thing that we talked about is, Idaho has probably up until recently been behind the times to most states for a lot of industries and a lot of things. And we have, having come from a recruiting background, we have a lot of people that, I've been doing it this way for 20 years and I just want to keep doing it. And that's the way it is. And this is if this is something that I've always believed. Those that know how to accept change and be a part of it find the most success. How are you guys working about that thing you just mentioned about possibly retraining or opening opportunities for folks to get involved in technology?
I love that topic. When we think about Idaho is a very entrepreneurial state. I think we can all agree on that.
Absolutely.
Right? It is truly the backbone of Idaho's economy. But you're right. There are entrepreneurs that, they've been doing their books the same way. They've been doing things and regardless of industry.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily about having them change like the services of their or whatever product that they're creating.
Yeah.
But we also know that entrepreneurs, they don't clock in at 8 and out at 5.
Oh, yeah.
They're working really long days. So when we think about technology, maybe when we can help them import a little bit of automation or a little bit of just using some of the tools that exist today, maybe they're eating dinner at home with their family instead of still out in the field. Or maybe they're, coming home from the office because they were able to use AI to write them the report they need for the next day. I mean, when you think about some of the AI tools where you can upload a couple of documents and say, give me a summary assessment that I can give a 5-minute presentation on,
absolutely.
and you get it within seconds. And for those that aren't, technologists or haven't been exposed to a lot of technology because it's just not something they've needed in the past, like we really want to help educate them. I think that, as we talked about in the last segment, that one of the things that ITC wants to do is identify who all the technology companies are, but we also want to provide a lot of free resources that someone could use today. We did a Spark series. They could find it on our YouTube channel on AI just a couple of weeks ago. It was our April Spark series event. And we did a panel conversation in just that 45-minute event. There were at least 20 tools shared in AI.
Quick and easy stuff to use too. Yeah.
And you are correct. And what a lot of people don't realize about AI is there are a lot of free versions.
Yeah.
So you can experiment it and you can get your hands on it without any cost. You can create a free version to like a ChatGPT or to like a Copilot or Gemini if you're a Google user. And if you're like, I don't even know where to start, you can ask AI how to ask AI.
Yes,
and people don't realize that.
Thank you for that.
There's your best piece of advice today. You could say, if I wanted to know how to do this, how would I ask you that question?
Yes.
And it'll give you a prompt. And then sometimes it'll give you 2 versions and say, which one do you like better? And so then it kind of actually learns what you're really looking for. And so, one of the best advice we give to people first is just to get in and play with it a little bit and experience like what it can create.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, and then, we heard a lot yesterday about cyber. I mean, there is always that, especially for someone that hasn't been super involved in technology, there's a little bit of fear factor, right? Fear of technology, a fear that they're going to get hacked and the whole cyber.
Big Brother's always watching.
Right.
And that's the fear, I think, of your general populace.
Right. Which is why we brought Cyber USA to our stage yesterday. We had a couple of national speakers, and I think the last data that I heard is that Idaho has about 3,500 unfilled cyber jobs right now.
I mean,
there's a huge job market. And so talking about that, we do host an Idaho Tech Jobs page on our website. But what we do is we also want, if someone is looking today that, maybe either they're not happy with the employment they have or they're looking to do something, or maybe they just want to be able to buy that first house and get out of the rental market and they're just looking for that higher salary, it doesn't require now necessarily that you go back and get a 4-year degree. There are certifications today that you can take that take less than 2 years that can immediately allow you to walk into a job that may pay double what you're making today. So we're going to see a lot of opportunities in education. Yesterday you saw the video from Micron. You did mention that earlier, but like their expansion, what did she say? 10 football fields, 2 wide, 5 long?
It's just, we're so lucky, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about a semiconductor type industry, and there's many technology industries. What you always hear about is the AI and a lot of the front end usage of this, right? You can't have any of it without the hardware that puts it out into the marketplace. And the hardware growth in Idaho, you also have Micron, and it was Crucial Technologies that turned into, oh my goodness, I'm going to blow that one. We have a great semiconductor thing happening in Idaho. And you can get into that industry. You can be a part of it. These businesses are trying as utterly hard as they can to welcome you in the door. And all you have to do is be a positive person, be on time, be a professional, and put some aptitude to it. This doesn't have to require your, like Diana's saying, your computer science degree, know how to do all the math and all that stuff, because we have the support of AI that's helping us get this done. And we still need great individuals to get out there and be a part of it. I love that.
Well, we do. I mean, we still definitely do need as many tech students to choose tech education, right? But when we think about the 5,000 plus jobs that Idaho is going to need, not just for the Micron expansion, but you think about there are a lot of semiconductor businesses right here in our valley. You've got JST Manufacturing that makes the masks that hold the microchip. You've got Photronics that also is in semiconductor. And when you think about all of the roles that these companies are going to need, they all have different levels of education needs. In fact, at JST, they have a lot of positions that do not require a degree. And to your point, they want someone that's going to work hard, they're coachable, they're teachable, they'll show up on time, and they'll do the trainings.
Sure.
So a lot of our because of the workforce needs that we're seeing, I mean, we already now have a huge workforce need in technology in Idaho, but we're on the cusp of really needing it. And when you think about some of these companies, their ability to scale and grow is their ability to fill positions. And there is that, a lot of people are worried that AI is going to take jobs.
Yeah.
And like we talked about before, in a lot of places, it's just going to help people maybe work less. And I don't know if we have time during this segment, but I think it would be great to also talk about our largest employer in the state is actually St. Luke's Health System.
Absolutely. Healthcare and technology is another great boom of everything, right?
They are a very early adopter of how they are using technology in healthcare. Their CIO is the board chair of the Idaho Tech Council, Reed Steffen. And so if we have time, we can jump in a little bit on how they're
we'll have
using
another
it
segment. We should talk about that for sure.
Yeah.
I will go back to what you said about certs. Okay. Even back in the late 90s when I was recruiting software professionals, if you were a Cisco certified engineer and you got the Cisco certificate, that door opened, that certificate alone opens so many things for you.
Absolutely.
My daughter is participating in the Idaho Launch Program today, and it is a real thing. That's real money coming back to our young individuals that can take this money towards certifications. A degree is one thing, a certification is another, and that just says that you qualify to understand this. And if you're sitting there and you're just wondering what you're doing with your life, you're working for a bank or you're working with something that's a big industry, it's important. Don't get me wrong. But growth is growth and opportunity is in growth. And those that know how to work through change are those that succeed the greatest. And you're presenting such a great opportunity with that, Diane. I just love that you took the time to come and share that with us.
I love that you included about your daughter in Idaho Launch. Like, we work very closely with all of our educators, and we heard yesterday an update on our stage from Greg Wilson at the Idaho State Department of Education that, this is something that the ITC has worked closely with them for many, many years, but just this session got across the finish line that now digital literacy will be a high school graduation requirement.
Okay.
Where in the past it's been an elective. And when we think about these decisions that will help Idaho not fall behind and have, because at least there'll be a certain level of digital literacy coming out of all of our graduates. It's got about a 2-3 year runway before it goes into effect. But I think that was a huge announcement in this session to get across the finish line. And I think that one thing your listeners can do if they're hearing all this and they're sitting there going, maybe I should look into trying to get a certification or to get some more training. If they go to our website and go under resources, we have a new program called TechBridge, and it lists all of the different educators. And actually, each one of their logos clicks to their program, and they can learn, what is mechatronics?
Okay.
What is mechatronics?
Yeah, I don't know.
So mechatronics is the name that the educators are using now for their programs that lead to those jobs in semiconductor. And we didn't talk a lot about it yesterday, but I think it's really important with your audience to know that we are a recipient of a CHIPS Act grant, and we are deploying over the next 2 years almost $900,000 and $2,000 per student.
Okay, that's a
for
lot.
students that are pursuing an education towards a job in semiconductor because it's coming through CHIPS Act. However, it's not required that it go towards a specific degree. So that money that we have can be used for housing, childcare, transportation.
Okay.
So
it's not limited. It's
not
supportive.
It is support services to help tech students that maybe they're at risk of dropping out because their rent has gone up. And so it's just to kind of increase that, get across the finish line. And but it can be to enter a program, a certification. Like it is a little bit more fluid because the jobs are all across the gamut that we're going to see at very different education levels.
And so many different opportunities. You've got young individuals, you've got older individuals. If you had to, we've got about 1 minute here. If you're like, I'm a parent and I have a young individual or somebody I know in the family that, man, just here's the program, right? This is the opportunity for you. Is there one that stands out for you?
In a program that we have or in a program for students?
Or something that you support or you're like, this is happening in Idaho and you should get right in there because it's amazing. I mean, there's so many different ways.
So I think if I was talking to, like you said, like a parent that has tech student or has students that are not sure what they want to do. And, it's hard that kids have to make that decision when they're so young
really
anyway,
tough,
right?
Yeah.
Is I would say to just be really curious about all of the different opportunities. Maybe first go look at all of the different Idaho Tech jobs listed on our page.
Yeah.
And one of the things we talked about yesterday, we launched a few months ago, TechBridge, which is a mentorship program for tech students to have a mentor.
There you go.
So, and it's an algorithm matching
That's all
that
you
they
need.
can put what they're interested in. And it's been super successful. We have so many, and you asked me at the very beginning, what's special about Idaho? It's the people. It's the people that are signing up to be mentors to the next generation of leaders, which are our students. Yeah. And we're seeing just some amazingness happen out of that. So then they can maybe learn a little bit more about what options they have.
The world is your oyster. Idaho is in that world. We can all live it. We can be a part of it. The only difference between those that do and those that don't are those that do just did. And you should be doing it with the Idaho Technology Council. We have Diane Bevan here. Thank you, Diane. We'll be back here in just a moment while we hear from a few sponsors. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Again, this is Dylan Stalker, your 3.5 generation Idahoan. We're talking about Great Idaho. What's great about Idaho? We're growing. We are developing. We are becoming a more proficient state. We are creating new economies. We are creating more opportunities. And there's a lot of people involved in doing that in technology. We have Diane Bevan here, the CEO of the Idaho Technology Council. She's been through these last few segments sharing honestly, some wonderful opportunities for all of us to get involved, all the way down to getting out of high school. If you didn't hear this whole thing and you want to hear more about that, let's go to thegreatidahoshow.com and you can listen to the whole episode. And I'm sure there's a lot of support that you can find at the Idaho Technology Council website. Diane, what is the website address for everybody listening today again?
It's exactly that. It's idahotechcouncil.org.
idahotechcouncil.org. This is our futures. Whether you want to get on the bus or not, the bus is coming right through, and Idaho is taking advantage of what I believe to be the wonderful things. Again, what I hear from Diane today is we're not just trying to get on that bus. We're trying to have that bus serve all communities in Idaho. We have Northern Idaho, Eastern Idaho. It's like 3 different little states and concepts all in one, and it's so not. We're separated by some Rocky Mountains, which we all love here. We all get to work in a technological field and go enjoy the beauty and the bounty of Idaho. It's so amazing. Before we got it finished up this last segment, you talked about technology in the healthcare system. It sounds like a great conversation. Tell us whatever you got.
Yeah, we've participated on lots of panels and talked to a lot of our experts at St. Luke's Health Systems, and they have really integrated AI quite a bit. And, we've talked about how does that impact the client experience. Yeah. And if you think about the last time that you were at a doctor's appointment and the practitioner is sitting having a conversation with you, maybe it lasts 20 minutes. And then he or she makes some notes on your chart. The difference in that and having an AI component record the entire conversation and give a summary, it allows, and that practitioner knowing that that's happening can really look you in the eye and engage with you in person. And we're finding that the human element is actually increasing as they're utilizing some of these automations. They're able to do a lot of transcriptioning. Remember the old medical?
You get quick feedback,
You get really quick feedback.
My brother's wife did that transcription for a living, right? In total analog. So, sorry.
No, you're great because you can have someone, instead of writing, they can be using a dictation that turns into an automation, and maybe they're not working the 100-hour weeks either. Yeah. And so they've just really found, but then you think about the different levels from the IT company and the back end that's doing all of like the invoicing and things like that. But then the closer that you get to the bedside manner of having, the nurses and right there, they're finding that it's really been super helpful and actually increasing the quality of care. And so I think if anyone is interested in learning more about that, it is really fascinating to see how technology has really integrated quickly into our healthcare systems.
It's a funny conversation, Diane, because I am a person that has worked in technology. I've worked in software. I've worked in semiconductors. I have this concept, but I myself am really restrictive. I'm like, oh man, I have to go sign up for a new app just to track my healthcare. It's like it puts me to work. And I probably feel like a lot of the people that are resisting, honestly. But when you describe that to me, and I'm trying to be non-biased and have my own opinions about it, it makes me feel like the service providers, your brain can only compute so much in a day, and more than 50% of what they're computing is just reports and all these things that they have to do. And it's taking half of the brain power of this person trying to care for you, worried about the information, and the technology is now stepping in to free all of this task thought from these people and allow them to say, hey, Diane, how do you feel today? I'm describing myself as a resistor, but ultimately I just need to see the value in it because it sounds like it's better care in the long run.
Honestly, it improves human connection. It does in my role. I have more time to have one-on-one conversations with someone that wants to come to my office and talk about their business idea or what they, whatever, right? They're moving their tech company.
Yeah.
And I have the time to do that because in the morning I can ask AI to go through all of the emails I got the day before, summarize them, and then let me know if there's any that need an immediate response. I save 2 to 3 hours of work per day just by utilizing technology. But I know that you have listeners that's mind-boggling.
It is
right?
mind-boggling.
And they think, where do I even start?
Sure.
And, I'm only a year in this role with the ITC. They've been around for 16 years.
Sure.
I'm in my first year as their CEO. And what I see is that we really want to be that go-to for resources, programs. If someone is like curious as where they even start, they just need to let us know. And we can be that connector for them.
Well, I have to say, in the general AI sense, I found it very entertaining. I was not an early adopter. I understand what early adoption is, and I just was resistive to check it out or do whatever. I had a lot of people that are more advanced than me, and they've been using it since the moment it came out. I find an entertainment sense to AI to lead people to using it for their productivity. Would you suggest anyone to just try it out?
Absolutely.
Is there any one specific?
I think probably the easiest one, depending on whether they're a Google user, they could use Gemini, Chat GPT, which is an OpenAI. They both have a free version.
Okay.
So sign up, and they could just even ask, I have a plant that looks like it's dying. What should I do for it? Just ask it common questions.
So simple.
What's an easier way to wash my dishes? Or, is there a better recipe for a chicken casserole? And just start having a conversation with AI and just play with it. I think that's the best advice I can give on that. The other thing I would want to note really quickly before we get done, and I would love it if you can add the link too on your, we can add it here. But yesterday on stage, we did launch a data dashboard. Lightcast is an Idaho-based company.
Yeah.
And, we used to print books. We would print a book of the Idaho Knowledge Report that would say who's hiring, the number of jobs, number of things happening in Idaho.
Opportunity everywhere.
But within months, it's obsolete information.
Yeah.
So we knew that we needed to automate the data. So it has a complete 5-year trends. It shows the Idaho overview of population, of what degrees kids are graduating in. It's it's very interactive. They can click on their county in Idaho.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah. So the two that are maps, everything on it they could go just play on our data dashboard and just start clicking on things.
You got to have a curiosity.
Yeah.
It's coming whether we like it or not.
It is.
And I love the AI sense of just go play with it. Ask it to create an image for you. That blew my mind, Diane. And again, I'm a very beta, low-level user. It is certainly increasing my productivity as a professional today. I do use it every day. And I was one of those people like, but it's coming very quick. Idaho is connecting agribusiness. We are connecting technology, healthcare, some of the biggest industries out there, and the young individuals out there able to use the launch program, use the resources that the Idaho Technology Council is providing. You said there's a mentorship program there, and you just got to do it. All you got to do is look into it, make a phone call, be curious, and what's so scary about it?
Well, and I think I love the curious element. And I would also let your listeners know that if you are currently running a business, whether you're a Main Street, Idaho business, whether you're working out of your home, and think about if there's one thing, what's taking the most amount of your time in a given day, and is that something that we could find technology to take that off your plate?
Ask it to take your spreadsheet and do what you want to do with it. Just try that. Y'all work with a spreadsheet if you're in business, I guarantee you. And if there's a spreadsheet that's tasking you with a time task, just give AI a chance and upload it and ask it to do what you needed it to do for you. It ain't going to be perfect every time. You have to work with it. It is a relationship. But I'm telling you right now, it has blown my mind, Diane. So Diane, I thank you so much for coming on today. We've got about just under a minute here. Do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I love the advice that you gave. And I think that we gave a lot of best practices and tools. I think that another one, a lot of business owners use QuickBooks. That's probably the only technology that maybe they use. And they could actually take a spreadsheet, their P&L, and drop it in and say, how would you summarize this? And maybe they'll make a different business decision because they're like, wow, I'm actually making more profit on a cupcake than I am on, a piece of pie or whatever, right? Yeah. And so I think sometimes data can drive good business decisions, and we want Idaho entrepreneurs to run healthy, thriving businesses, and anything we can do to help, they should reach out.
This is Dylan Stalker, the Great Idaho Show, Diane Bevan of the Idaho Technology Council. I thank you all for listening, and you all have a wonderful day. Thank you very much.